So in the last episode, unfortunately, Norval Sinclair Marley passes on. And so now we're picking up in Sadella Booker or Marley Booker's book, and she's talking a little bit about Bob Marley's upbringing, right? Raise the girls and love the boys. That is how Jamaican children rearing is sometimes described. From an early age, Jamaican girls are taught responsibility to cook, clean, and sew. The boys, on the other hand, are usually just loved and let loose to romp. That's a whole show in and of itself, right? Today, Jamaican women are outshining their men in practically all fields, and this unequal upbringing may be partly explain why, or may partly explain why. However, that is not the way I raised Nesta. So she's like, that's what was going on, but that's not what I was doing. Yes, he was very much loved from the day of his birth. He was the center of attraction, his grandfather's favorite, and everyone in the district. That favorite thing is something that often comes back to cause issues in the family unit. We saw that favorite thing in the Bible. We saw it with Abraham and Isaac. We saw it with Esau and Jacob. That favorite thing is problematic in many family structures. But let's continue. Family and friends fussed over him, but if he was loved, he was also raised to accept responsibility, and as a child of Royal Jamaica, taught early to do his share of the daily work. From a young age, Nestor learned to wake up with the early morning birds and tramp in the misty bushland to milk the goats and cows. He helped draw water from the tank, and during times of drought when the tank ran dry, he would carry a kerosene pan down into the valley, catch water from Mountain Spring, and balancing the brimming pan on his head or shoulder, lug it up the hillside trail to the house. So Sedella said she wasn't playing that, you're not going to get anything done. He learned to cook and could prepare any meal from breakfast to dinner. He especially loved to boil fish tea and would often make it for us. And he learned to do the grocery shopping. In fact, during our life together in Kingston, Nestor was my one and only shopper. I mean, he learned it from earlier too, because he was shopping for Miss Gray at like what, 6? He would go to the market and buy coal for the cooking, yam, onion, scallion, peas, breadfruit, green banana, or chocho for our meals. I had only to give him money on Saturday and send him on his way. He would walk to Carnation Market, haggle with the street side vendors for whatever stuff or food stuff or ground produce we needed for the week, carrying it back in a basket. And it may also be because at that time she doesn't have any girls. So she doesn't have any girls and he's the only child. And if she's a mother working and doing what she had to do, he had to do what he had to do. And Nestor was a lucky shopper for us too. One time I sent him to the Chinaman shop to buy a box of Eve brand rice. And when he returned, I opened the box. To my shock, a coupon for 5 shillings fell out. 5 shilling coupon. At that time, I was working as a maid cleaning houses for 30 shillings a week. 5 shillings, one whole day's pay, was like a bountiful gift from heaven. Nesta and I were so joyful that we could have danced around the quick kitchen table. Quick, quick! I sent him back to the shop to redeem the coupon and buy more boxes of rice in case we could find another 5 shillings. We didn't, but 59 years later, I still remember the day Nesta brought home the box of Eve brand rice. Out of it poured 5 shillings worth of Jazz desperately needed blessings. I'm jump down a little bit. Nesta was never a puny, puny cry child. Like cry, cry, baby, moonshine, darling. He wasn't that. Always his heart was brave and stubborn. Always he would stand his ground against anyone if he thought he was right. One time when Nesta was only about 5 or 6, Papa gave him a cup of tea to drink. Nesta took one sip and made up his face and declared that the cup was dirty. The cup not dirty, Papa insisted. Drink it. No, sir, Nesta said, me not drink it. Me said, drink it. The cup clean, Papa roared like a lion. No, sir, Nesta said stubbornly. It dirty. Me not drink out a dirty cup. Unable to believe his eyes and ears, Papa, who was used to getting his way in all things, could only glare at his grandson. What a feisty little boy, he finally growled, meaning that Nesta was impertinent. But in spite of his irritation, Papa had to laugh at his young grandson's stubbornness, and eventually he gave Nesta the tea to drink in a clean cup. Later, when we moved from 9 miles to Kingston, and Nestor would go out to the afternoons to kick the ball with the rowdy boys of the neighborhood, I would warn him against keeping bad company. But he would calm me by saying, "Don't worry, mama. Nobody give me orders. Nobody can ever make me do anything that me never lament over. Or nobody can ever make me do anything that me lament over." I believed him. His nature was always stubborn. He would stand his ground against anyone if he thought he was right, just as he had with Papa over the dirty cup. And as long as we lived together as mother and son, he never once get into any serious trouble because of bad company. I'm going to jump down a little bit. She goes into his pastimes of playing and his shoes and things of this nature. But this is what I thought very telling about one of these stories. So let me jump down there. It says here, one of Nestor's closest playmates during those early years was Bunny Livingston, later Bunny Wailer of Bob Marley and the Wailers. When Nestor was about 6 or 7 years old, Bunny's father, Thaddeus Livingston, who would become the father of my daughter Pearl, built a house in 9 miles and opened a shop. Bunny became one of the pack of village boys who, along with Nestor, romped together, walked every day to Stepney School, and roamed the bush country of the district during times of idleness. And these boys looked after each other. I remember, for example, when Nestor was still very young, he developed, let's listen, a sore at the bottom of his foot that wouldn't heal. This is interesting. His mother, in retrospect, is shining light on the fact that he developed a sore on the bottom of his foot that had a hard time healing, much like the injury he got on his toe later on in life that had a hard time healing. I'm all for hearing about the conspiracies, but I like to read about what the people who were there, at least their testimony, however much it's worth, right? While roaming the bush, he had stepped on a broken bottle and cut himself. And for months and months, the wound festered. No matter what I put on it, the cut still seeped with pus and looked raw. We were all into the story, and I forgot to give a big up to Island Love, the latest novel that I have out. So check it out on Amazon, and we're going to get right back up into Nestor as a young boy in the country, in the city. It never pretty, yeah. Real quick, this is Amuna, author and storyteller, and I have a new release available on Amazon because I love writing and reading stories. This is a Caribbean American tale about love and culture. We have a young girl named Jackie, and she gets into it with a lot of frenemies and some other people that's trying to take away our rights. So go ahead and check out Island Twist, available on Amazon today. Now let's get back to the story. So that's important to note, that the mother is saying that early on he had an injury that wouldn't heal. And as we see later on in his life, he had an injury that turned into something else. Interesting to note. A man in the district warned me that I should buy Nestor shoes or his toe would grow twisted because of the way he had begun walking on the side of his foot to shield the wound on his foot bottom. Yet nothing I tried helped it heal. So now we have two things going on. He had it was affecting his toe, as per the man in the district, and he had an issue on his foot bottom. So this is not the first time he had a foot injury. It says here, his cousin Nathan, who at 13 was several years older than Nestor, one of his closest playmates announced one evening that he knew how to cure the foot. He went into the fields and picked some Sybil oranges and roasted them in a coal fire. And when the oranges were softened, he cut open the rind and scraped off the warm pulp, which he mixed with a smelly yellow powder called iodoform that he had bought at the drugstore. Making a plaster of this compound, he smeared it on a cloth that he had bound tightly around Nestor's foot. Within days, the wound had scabbed over. 2 weeks later, new skin had formed, and the sore was completely healed. Why she recalled this? Why she put it in the book? What was going on? Was he re-injuring the foot every time he walked on it? Was it something internal? All of these questions, right? This same Nathan was also one of the first people to make Nesta a guitar. It was a crude thing made of goat skin and bamboo and became one of the first musical instruments that Nesta ever owned and played. How interesting is that? Going to jump down now. Going to jump down. There's something that came to my mind as I'm reading because now all of these collections, I've read it before, but as I'm sharing it with you guys, there's something that keeps coming to my mind as I go along. His mother, according to Sedella, his grandmother, whenever she was sad, she would sing songs in her coffee field. Whenever Omariah's women were upsetting her or she felt triggered by her experience, she would go and sing her troubles away. And Sedella makes note that she did that and her son did that as well. So there is a connection between singing their troubles away and how they express or purge their soul from whatever it is that they were experiencing. I just wanted to put that in because I came across an interview and I'm like, wait a minute. Now that I'm putting that in perspective, I look at these songs very much differently. And to many of the people who keep saying, this is a little 1 second, to leave the people alone, they put their personal experiences into music and song and books for people to listen to. That means we, the audience, it is our responsibility to filter what comes in, to assess what comes in. Just like she said to Nesta, nobody make nobody follow bad company, you know. So you have to know what, it doesn't matter who it is. You have to know that whatever you're taking in, you need to be able to filter it, right? Because now it's going to go into your subconscious, go into your psyche, especially music. Music passes a lot of things and rest in the soul. It's a very powerful medium. And so we can be singing, repeating, rehearsing and reciting certain energy that was created at a time of when the person was upset or when they felt slighted or when they felt disrespected or when they felt loved. We are rehearsing those things in our life. So yes, we have the opportunity and the right to look at what we are rehearsing in our lives and see whether or not it's something that we want to do. So I thank them for that, what they have given us. Back to the story. She says, it was then that I began to notice that many people were dropping by the shop, especially to see Nesta. I had jumped down a little bit. Let me go up back. Hold on. We struggled on. It was hard to make a living in the Jamaican country parts, and I felt ashamed to go crying for support to Papa, who already had enough dependents of his own to support me and Nesta. We know he had enough. I tried my hand at shopkeeping in Stepney. It was then I began to notice that many people were dropping by the shop, especially to see Nesta, who at the time was only 5 or 6 years old. And she keeps saying 5 or 6, so I'm to assume this is before he goes to Mrs. Gray in Kingston, right? And that he had began to regularly read palms of my waiting customer. The other day in the live, I asked her, by what spirit is he reading these palms? By what spirit? That sometimes people may pick up something or it may become natural to them. And we may, even back in the day, people may marvel, but the question I'm asking is by what spirit, by what energy is he reading these palms? Where is this coming from, right? And that he had begun to regularly read the palms of my waiting customers. At first, I paid little attention to this, putting it down to childish show-offing. But then I began to notice that the adults were paying close attention to what Nesta was telling them as he pored over their open palms. Did he see it anywhere before? TV is not big at that time. Did he hear about it? Is it a natural inclination? Is it back to when they had the experience early on when he was 6 months old? Is it the vision? Is it Miss Lucy Lawrence? Like, what is really going on? Can we just say, guess man, the man could have did read palms and not really investigate where this energy is coming from? I would wrap the flour or sugar or whatever I was selling and watch him out of the corner of my eye, smiling to myself at this, his latest plaything. But one day, a woman named Aunt Zen came to my shop and remarked, you know, Auntie Siddy, Nesta can't really read hands. So for the people in the neighborhood or the community to say that, that means that it was a practice of theirs, right? He's just playing, I replied. No, she said firmly. Auntie Siddy, everything Nesta tell me come true. How can that be? I asked, doubting. I don't know, Auntie Siddy, she said, bobbing her head with certainty. All I know is that child tell me nothing but the truth. The same opinion was seconded by a man named Sola Black, who was the district constable in the parish, and not a flighty man to run joke. He came into the shop one day, and Nestor said to him, "Let me read your hand." So Nestor he was advertising. It's not only that the people are saying this, he was advertising. I remember one day I was in New York a few years ago, and somebody just walked up to me talking about some "let me read your hand." I'm like, nah, no, I'm good. What are you doing? Right? So the receptiveness to this practice of the people in the community is just as interesting as this young boy's inclination to doing this thing, right? Then he took Sola's hand and began to read it. When Nestor was done, Sola came over to me, for he could see me sitting on my shopkeeper's stool, laughing at Nestor's antics, and said with a serious face, "Let me tell you something, Auntie Siddy. Every word that child tell me is true. Everything he see in my hand is true." "You mean it?" I asked, puzzled. "Whether him know or not, everything him tell me is true, and it's only me hand that him read." I didn't know what to think, but I knew Sola was respected throughout the district as a serious man who was nobody's fool. But just as quickly as the phase developed, it soon blew over like a morning breeze. It passed while Nestor was absent from the district, aka, you know, having been delivered by his father into the clutches of Miss Gray. I was going to say it, but I waited for Sedella to say it. He was gone for several months. People would come into the shop and ask for him. A few would go away, disappointed, muttering about wanting to get another reading. But soon I had found Nestor and freed him from the decrepit Miss Gray. Why did they call Miss Gray decrepit, though? She was a sickly. She had to call Miss Gray decrepit. I brought him back to Stephanie, and he began again to help me out around the shop in afternoons after school. Shortly after Nestor had returned, Aunt Zen entered my shop and laid her open, wrinkled hand on the counter for him to read. Nestor just glanced at the hand. He made no move to read it. Aunt Zen impatiently tapped the counter with her knuckles. So her hand open and she had knock the counter for him to say, come, read my hand. Nestor went over to her. "I don't read hand no more," he told her politely. So let me say it politely. "I don't read hand no more." "What?" she exclaimed, picking up her hand. "You don't read hand no more." "No," Nestor said. "I sing now." Others have written that Nestor was born with psychic powers. Some claim, for example, that Nestor put a curse on Leslie Kong of Federal Records, causing him to drop dead suddenly at 38 from a heart attack. Kong was said to have exploited Nestor in producing his first record song, "Judge Not." I don't know personally about these things, for I never interfered in Nestor's business. I only know the things I witnessed him do with my own eyes when he was a child. He used to read palms. Serious-minded villagers swore that he was accurate. Then he abruptly stopped, and instead he began to sing. That was an interesting, again, if I was going to research this whole Leslie Kong thing, I would look it up if that was his actual name and see what it is he passed from. But why would the people say such a thing, right? That wouldn't be something that he should have done. But why would the people come up with that? Like she said before, if it nagosa, it go near so, or that people would make up things, I don't know, to explain what they were seeing. But again, I ask you because this is one of the curious chapters that I'm not saying that people don't have vision and that people are not born prophetically, right? But the reading of the hand specifically, I find to be fascinating. And I would like to know your thoughts in the description below.